Ladies and gentlemen, the journey has begun. To the Dark Continent. Yeah, beyond the tarot, I will take you there. The princes of Kaiken, everybody's there. It's gonna be crazy. Holy shit. This potentially is gonna be one of the best arcs in Shonen. Yes, I said it, in Shonen. I have very high expectations for Togashi Yoshihiro. Now, that being said, this chapter does have quite a bit of material. However, I don't think I need to do like a 30-minute review for this one because, well, number one, I got stuff to do. Number two is I can cover this in like broad brushes. But that being said, we'll see how it rolls. So when it comes to this chapter, the main thing here is that we're finally beginning the journey. And that is the biggest point of the story progression. But before we even get there, shit's like already hitting the fan. It's absolute insanity. So let's talk about, first of all, the pacing of the chapter. A lot of dialogue when it comes to the ship structure, when it comes to Kurapika having the internal monologue. I mean, dude, Togashi loves the internal dialogue. I mean, Togashi surpasses Aizen. The base characters in Hunter x Hunter surpass Aizen when it comes to internal monologues by leaps and bounds. It is ridiculous. So you have that dialogue that goes on for a while. Then you have the cow dude, Mizai Storm, talking to Kurapika about the situation in levels 3 and 4. It's like, I don't think they've even left, and it's already a shitstorm. Dude, unbelievable. I want to read to you what they say. There's going to be a lot of reading along here when it comes to this review, because it's one of those Hunter x Hunter chapters where, even though it's not as heavy as like other chapters in the past, it's still kind of heavy. So then we have, I think, like the head of the assault platoon of the first Prince Benjamin. He talked about a lot of stuff as well. So the structure is pretty deep when it comes to the dialogue. And the overall pacing, it's not that fast of a chapter, because ultimately speaking, it's just the announcement of them finally leaving for the Dark Continent, the quote-unquote Dark Continent, because remember that they're gonna first start off in the outskirts of the human world. They're gonna populate those regions, and then like the real powerful fuckers, they're gonna go to the Dark Continent. So that's the plan initially. And then it's following Kurapika having his internal monologues, and then you have Oito, the, like, what number is she, like 11 or like 15 in like the wives line? The fact of the matter is that you have Kurapika and you have Oito. They're basically like getting set up for the adventure. And then the chapter ends off with like a black kind of mass appearing above the baby for like an instant. So it was like a Nen surge appearing above the baby. Kurapika feels that. The other guards don't feel that. Therefore, you can assume that the other guards, they're not Nen users, which is a bad fucking sign. And then Kurapika sees nothing, but he knows something is going on here. It's begun. So I believe like the princes have to like consume an egg of some kind in order to awaken like their Nen beast. Well, that's what's maybe going on with the baby. So yeah. And that may have some complications because the kid is a kid. He's a freaking baby. So the kid may not be able to control its Nen at all. So that Nen beast could just go rampant at like any point in time, which would be pretty intense. In fact, my guess here is that the only person that's relatively safe from that Nen beast would be his mom, Oito. That's my guess. But again, we'll have to wait and see about that one. So that's overall pacing. Now, when it comes to the characterization, you get to see the princes, and we get to see Beyond the Tarot. Again, he's under lock when it comes to the Zodiacs. We don't get to see Juniperson, which I'm, or Hisoka, or Kurolo, which I'm like, where we at? Where we at? There's a lot of parties involved here. But regardless, we don't see any of them, unfortunately. But we will at some point, or we will for sure. And that's gonna be crazy. Either way, characterization. So again, we get to see like the princes, we get to see some of their guards. And I mean, it's not really like a big deal. So an example of this characterization would be, let's say, like the Prince Sail, I think his name is. Like it's something stupid like that. He is the guy that has the kind of like wavy-ish hair. Well, he has like female bodyguards, like all these hot chicks. And then we get to see some of these hot chicks. So it's stuff like that where, yeah, like it's characterization, but it's not necessarily like important at all. We can say that like the kid, since there was like a Nen thing over him, there is characterization in that sense because it looks like the kid's Nen is starting to awaken. And then, honest to God, that's really it. Like there's no real characterization when it comes to this chapter of Hunter x Hunter. Now, the last part, story progression. is the complete opposite of the characterization, where for characterization there was hardly any at all. But when it comes to story progression, far from. So let's start here. Number one. Once again, they are heading off finally to the outskirts of the human world and then the Dark Continent. You have the King of Kaiken hyping this all up. The announcers are hyping. The whole thing was massive hype for obvious reasons, because we've been waiting. We have been waiting for this moment, and we're getting to this moment finally. So Nasubi Hyugyo-ro, he's like, I'm amazing, I'm fantastic, I'm the reason why you're all here this evening, obviously, and I'm gonna go to ship. And then that's really it. Like, that's all this motherfucker does. It's, I'm amazing, Lego. Really? Okay, bro. Okay. I mean, if you want to call that characterization, I mean, fine. But either way, hyping the folks up, we're gonna go conquer this new continent. After this point in time, literally history will be made. A new history that'll be led by the people of Kaken. So then after the King of Kaken speaks, we have a layout of the Black Whale, and the Black Whale is big. And the best way to move forward this story progression is just going to read to you verbatim. So, and I quote, from the assault commander of Benjamin's unit, whatever they're called. The Black Whale has 5 decks, and the first deck houses the royal family and the V5's political VIPs. The second deck has various celebrities and prominent figures, as well as the wealthy upper class. The third deck and below is for the general public and regular passengers. The connecting pathways to each of the decks is being guarded by the royal troops and is being treated as under martial law. And this right here is very intriguing. Furthermore, the second and third deck are completely cut off from each other by massive thick walls. During emergencies, they can be opened and shut only from the second deck. Now that's very important right there. Once again, right here, during emergencies, they can be open and shut only from the second deck. So if you're a commoner and something goes down, you're fucked. You're fucked, dude. You are absolutely screwed. It's the people who are on the first deck. And by the way, it's like a cruise ship that's like the first deck, like the first section, on top of like the Black Whale itself, which is pretty cool. I like the design. But either way, so that means that the royalty or the celebrities, the wealthy, if they so choose, they can easily abandon the folks on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th decks. And there's already shit going down there. And also I want to point out here is that folks like Kurolo, who are not like celebrities, they're not like high-end personnel, at least as far as I understand. I mean, maybe Kurolo snuck in with like the bodyguards. But if Kurolo and the fam troop are trying to get in there by like regular means, and they go in as like civilians, it's gonna be kind of hard because you have the second and third area and they're cut off. And the only way someone in the 3rd level can access the 2nd level is if someone on the 2nd level lets them. So, I mean, Nen can change the game, obviously, but it's still gonna be fairly difficult, all right? It's not easy. Like, this whole thing has been very well designed on the part of Kaiken, and it's designed specifically for the safety and benefit of the rich, the VIPs, and whatnot. That's the way it seems. So, because we find out later on what's going on in levels 3 and below. We find out what's going on there, and it's like, bro, the next part of the story progression is basically going to be like the prep work that we see going down on each of like the bodyguards' end when it comes to the princes. So we get to see what's happening with like Benjamin's unit and like how they're planning stuff out. And then it's explained how like there's gonna be a meeting every Sunday when it comes to like a dinner between the princes and the king, and how they have to enter in a certain order and then they have to leave it in a certain order. So it's gonna be very difficult for people to actually like get the jump on someone and try and take them out. However, with Nen, that does of course change the game. Furthermore, when it comes to Kurapika's end, you know what? Fuck it, I'll read it for you, because this, again, is mainly focused on the prep work of each of the sides. But since we're following Kurapika and company, well, his is like the most important, so let me read for you. First of all, I need to get a read on the enemy's battle strength so I can gauge the balance of power and where we stand. Presently, I don't know anything apart from how much security personnel each of the princes has. Even excluding the possibility of Nen users existing in the mix, our battle strength is scarce, and that's true. Even the hunters in charge of security outside the residential headquarters may not be our allies. which makes them threats. At the time of the test, we didn't learn any ulterior motives or plans from the Kaken examinees, and most of the Kaken bodyguards even slipped past my chain test. Limited hunter qualifications were given out for the period of this voyage to the Dark Continent in order to have more friendly bodyguards aboard, but it seems the Dark Continent committee making the examinations lax may have backfired on us. And so this results to about 150 some odd Nen users that they don't know what's going on when it comes to their motives. 150 Nen users. 150 Nen users where we don't know what their motive is at all. They're just ghosts. I mean, okay, all right. The standards by which you can gauge certain threats when it comes to hunters, you can no longer do because there's been some degree of reformation when it comes to the bylaws that have existed for, I think, quite a bit of time. So even that is going to have a role when it comes to trying engaging the opponents. And then we have Mizai Storm talk about what's going on in decks 3 and 4, and decks 3 and 4 are already fucked, all right? Like, Kaken, in this case, when it comes to management, this surprised me, honestly. Given the amount of hype, given the amount of, like, investment that Kaken was putting into this, the fact that they were this sloppy is shocking. However, maybe they're being this sloppy purposefully. It's possible, but regardless of that, let me read to you what Mizai Storm says to Kurapika via the phone. I'm devoting my attention to decks 3 and 4. The crime rate down here has picked up and got out of hand faster than I'd ever expect. From forged tickets, theft and robbery, fighting and arguments, drunken brawls, all the way to identity fraud, larceny, assault, and all kinds of things. On top of having to investigate tons of false reports, it's utter chaos. Like, hey, dude. Yo! Bro. The engines just started and already shit's fucked. How is that? No! Bruh. Okay, but we're not done yet. We are not done yet. We have to continue. It appears a rumor that some criminal ring is causing people's tickets to be rendered invalid due to that person supposedly already being on board was the origin of all this mess. And that criminal ring, that may be Phantom Troop. I would figure that the Phantom Troop would want to lay low, but it still could be them. And understand that it's more so on like the rumor side, like no one can confirm it. Like if it was a Yakuza style organization, then it wouldn't be a freaking rumor. But since it's a rumor, then there is some secrecy involved in this, and that could be Phantom Troop. Okay, let's move on. We seriously underestimated just how careless and sloppy Kaken could be. Their whole plan and protocol was completely meaningless, and the ones that are the worst off are the medical teams. Now this is interesting. There are 3 treatment facility rooms on the 3rd deck, while the 4th and 5th decks have 2 rooms, and the 5th deck doesn't even have any resident doctors. There are only 1/5 of the medical facilities that they had planned and 1/15 of the doctors available. And what really has me disgusted is that I hear the upper floors have 1 doctor for every 20 people. Again, there seems to be some degree of class warfare off the gate. Now, granted though, I will say this. For the overall pacing, I'm not too sure about the sense of time here. Like, I'm not too sure if they've left or if they're about to leave. Because all this shit's happening right now, and we just saw the ships like get on board the Black Whale. So I have to wonder, from a sense of time, has it been a few hours? Has it been a few days? Or is it more so like it's happening just now? Like, as the people are boarding, shit's hitting the fan now. So, going back into the chapter, I just realized something I forgot for characterization, and that was Oito. And honestly, I kind of forgot about her. I really did. But Oito in this chapter, she comes to the realization, like, it is very possible that she could die in this whole thing. And she honestly fears that. Like, she thought that she came to terms with that, but when reality comes smacking you in the face, it's kind of like, shit. So, here she is trembling and she's extremely worried, and it's to the point where she has to be tended to. That is characterization of worth. Finally, chapter ends off with, again, her going to her quarters, and then they're gonna take the kid, the prince. However, you have the Nen that's surging from the prince. Kurapika feels that, and the time is now. So, I'm done. I'm done with the chapter. So, going back to all the points, when it comes to the pacing, when it comes to the structure of the chapter, the structure, once again, is pretty deep based on the dialogue, and the pacing overall, for me, there is an issue with, like, maybe time, where I just pointed out how I'm not too sure what, like, the sense of time is. Like, have they left or are they about to leave? I'm not too sure. But in of itself, the pacing is relatively fine. When it comes to characterization, nothing of worth with the exception of Oito. I must add that. So the chapter rating has now gone up by a bit. So Oito, she does have that fear because reality smacking her in the face like, shit, I could really die. So now she has to come to terms with this because her life is on the line in earnest. I mean, Kurapika's talking about, like, escape routes. Because now that he knows what's going on in decks 3 and 4, he may use that to his advantage to try and let Oito escape. But of course, his goal is something more than that, because it's like the 4th Prince of Kaiken. I can't say his name, but he has the eyes, and you know Kurapika is gung-ho for those eyes. That was characterization for her. And then also there is some possibly for her child when it comes to the Nen being released, but at the same time, we have to wait and see how that rolls out. But overall characterization, I'll probably go from subpar to okay. And then finally, story progression. People are on the black whale. The journey is about to begin, or the journey has begun. It has begun. So that is obviously mad hype right there, because a lot of folks have been waiting for this for a while, given the hiatuses and whatnot, and now we're finally getting to the stage, and knowing the parties involved as well. Again, this arc has the potential to be an amazing arc. Then on top of that, we have the structure of the black whale. We find out what's happening in decks 3 and 4. When it comes to the bodyguards of the princes, how much analyzation is going into this, how Nen can completely change the game, how the system is in favor clearly of the rich and of the celebrities and of the VIP and of the royalty themselves, because decks 1 and 2 are being clearly pampered and they're completely isolated from decks 3, 4, and 5. So there's a lot of stuff when it comes to story. That being said, people, this was a great plus chapter of Hunter x Hunter, and I'm done. King Lightning, rate the video, comment, and subscribe as always. Peace! Have a nice goddamn day.